Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on Lyme Recovery with Heather Gray. Hello, I'm Heather Gray. I'm a AKA LymeBoss. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who works with frustrated professionals who are over their embarrassing gut issues, their brain fog that they can't seem to cut through, and the energy that leaves them zapped all day. Right? When you take your labs to the doctors and they say you're normal, but you feel anything but normal, that's when I dig a little deeper and figure out what's going on. Today, we have Sandra Scheinbaum she is a PhD and founder CEO of Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. How awesome is that? And today we're going to be talking about building resilience for coping with chronic Lyme. One of my favorite topics after having Lyme disease myself for over 27 years, as well as Hashimoto, celiac, endometriosis, bipolar was diagnosed, and 2 stints in the psych ward for suicide attempts. So that is part of the reason why I have such a passion on talking about these, not just Lyme, but all, autoimmune, chronic health, mental health, because they're just sadly being underrepresented in the world today. And so thank you for guests like Sandra coming on and telling us her beautiful wisdom. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. Sandra, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So yes, tell us a little bit about what's your backstory? What got you into the functional medicine world?
Yeah, well, it's a long story because I'm quite old, and so it's not where I thought I would have landed. I studied education in college back in the 60s and thought I was going to be a teacher, was for a while in special education. And even back then, I was noticing there were some issues because I was always focused on the strength perspective, and people were only focusing on the deficits, what's wrong with these kids. And I was also starting to get really interested in stress management, especially for parents. So I started giving all these workshops and then workshops for teachers. And eventually I went back and got my PhD in clinical psychology. And then for close to 40 years, I was a clinical psychologist, and I was a health psychologist. So I worked with people who had physical conditions, primarily. Often there was anxiety and panic and depression accompanying that. And so I was in that world of psychology where it's all about finding the name of the condition. Is this person bipolar? How are we going to treat that condition? And it was often very demoralizing because it was based on a deficit. You're broken, you need to be fixed. And I was focusing on what's right with people and how some really simple techniques like breathing. And back in the 80s, late 70s, when I was doing this work, like this was unheard of. I had doctors throwing me out of their office, like, wait a minute, like you're telling me breathing could actually help? Like, get out of here. And so I was using those muscle relaxation imagery techniques. People were getting better. And I was always interested on a personal level on nutrition and how what you eat matters, primarily because I had issues myself. I was binging on sugar. I was having panic attacks, probably as a result. And so along the way, I got training in nutrition as well as through the Institute for Functional Medicine. I trained in functional medicine. And then people were saying, we need to put all the stuff that you've been advocating, teaching for so many years together to train health coaches. And so I founded a school. We train health coaches in all of these processes that have to do with helping somebody live their best life and find the way through their strengths to really thrive and flourish.
Sandra, how freaking cool are you? Oh my God. That's brilliant. That's almost a lot of the stuff that I've put together when I work with folks is, breathing and somatic experiencing work. And now I've even brought in some energy frequency type work, as well as looking functionally at the body, and then nutrition, and of course, mindset, sleep, and all that fun stuff. But how brilliant are you? Like, I literally just learned about breath work myself like a year ago, and it's completely changed my life. I'm like, how are not more people talking about this? And they are now, but like you said, back in the 80s, 90s, holy cow, how cool are you?
Well, we didn't call it breath work then. It was just breathing. It was just some, belly breathing, but it worked. And it's delightful to see how this is taken off, and people are really now talking about breath work.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. So why building resilience for coping with chronic Lyme? So give us a little background on that and how you help people.
Yeah, well, it is really all about resilience, hardiness. And what I have focused on through my whole career, and now we teach health coaches, it's from positive psychology. So traditionally, psychology has been what's wrong with you. You're broken, as I said, you need to be fixed. And we're talking about what constitutes a life well lived and how do you thrive and flourish. And big part of that is what constitutes that. And so you need positive emotions. You need to be engaged in some things that will be in a flow state where you lose track of time. It's the acronym is PERMA, so positive emotions, engagement or flow, relationships that are meaningful. The M is meaning and purpose in your life, and the A is achievement. You put that all together, that's a life well lived. Those are the ingredients. But how do you get there? You get there through your character strengths, and that's where resilience comes in. It relates to, you can think of your strengths as your psychological capital, and they are always with you. It's like you have a bank account, and you only add to it as you practice and express your strengths. You don't draw down, but you rely on them and you call on them. So what are these that I'm speaking of? Well, researchers around the world, this was in around the mid-90s. It was Martin Seligman and others in the field. They looked around the world to see what are these traits that people have in common. And they looked across religions and philosophy. They've read all of the literature on psychology, looked across different cultures, and it boiled down to 24 strengths. Some are of the heart and some are of the mind. What am I talking about specifically? Well, there are strengths associated with wisdom, being able to judge all sides of an argument, listen to pros and cons and reason things out, love of learning, curiosity, which you need for learning. There are strengths that have to do with love and kindness, and strengths that have to do with hope and gratitude. Humor is a character strength. So
Woohoo!
we all, yes, we
I have it in
all,
spades.
yeah, we all have these, and put together, they amount to what we're calling resilience. What does that mean? It's being able to find ways to live with and also improve your situation. So it's looking at some people call it hardiness, and it's the idea that will not crumble when we have assaults coming to us through at all times, toxins at all different levels, toxic thoughts, toxic emotions, toxic products, toxic foods, toxic relationships. And hardiness means that you can find a way out. Maybe it's problem solving. Maybe it is perseverance. Perseverance is a strength. And I know many of you, probably most of the listeners, have this. You weren't satisfied if your doctor said, well, these lab tests shows this, and okay, that's it. Go home and take this drug for the rest of your life. Perhaps you read more about it. So that's curiosity, love of learning. Perhaps that perseverance was going to a different doctor, finding different solutions, finding those answers, and not giving up, persevering. Perhaps one of those strengths that you're using is perspective, where you can zoom out and see the big picture. That is really important, because if you're stuck in a bad feeling, it's in the moment, but it's all consuming. To be able to zoom out and have a perspective, you might look at, well, let's look at the whole month, or look at a year, and where there's so many times when I felt better, when I was able to have a better day. So perspective is very important. Humor, being able to laugh, and even in dire circumstances, people have used humor, and it's very, very healing. So all of these strengths, when you're using them, are anti-inflammatory. Now, there are some strengths that stand out for you. They're your signature strengths. So that what makes you you. So for me, it's creativity, it's zest. So I'm standing right now and kind of bouncing around. That is zest. It's my personality. But years ago, I thought it was ADD. I was always moving, and creativity, well, that was daydreaming, and I have ADD. So often we look at what is our strength as a deficit or a problem area. So you may be wondering, where do you find out about your signature strengths? Well,
That's what I was going to
yes,
ask. How do you find out?
there's a nonprofit organization called VIA, VIA, and you can go to VIA character.org, and they have a free test. It's research based, and you can find out your strengths. What's cool is you give it to your loved ones, to your kids. They have a kids version, and you start having strengths talk and strength spotting.
I would love to actually have my clients do this as well.
Yes.
I seems a little on the woo-woo side, and I get that, but actually what I started doing is putting into my packages reading with a friend of mine who does astrology, and her stuff is so ridiculously spot on. And it helps to reinforce those strengths and to also be mindful of things that you kind of lack and you need a little bit more work on. Because I feel like when people know themselves, you give them that tool, right? It helps them succeed at anything a heck of a lot better than, like you said, you thought you had ADD. Now you look at that as a gift, and no, it's not ADD, it's this. So I love, like, I'm kind of like a character, what do they call that? Myers-Briggs, like
Yes,
personality
yes.
profiling, like
Yes,
I love
exactly.
all that
Very, yeah, very similar strengths finder. This is evidence-based, and it's a research foundation. So it's very, very legitimate, and it'll resonate with you. You will see these strengths. This is really the Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. This is founded the master's program in positive psychology at University of Pennsylvania. So is still doing research on these areas. And that's what we teach our health coaches. People do take that via survey when they come to be clients. And it's really eye-opening when you're using a strengths as opposed to a deficit perspective.
Absolutely. That's incredible. I love it, love it, love it. Yeah. I mean, the whole time of trying to get diagnosed, I mean, that was, at first it was empowering to put a name to this monster, but at the same time, then it was like this weird cloak of comfortable, that I stayed into this label, this diagnosis, right? A lot of people, especially with Lyme, will wear that like a blanket of comfort. And I love how you brought that out of, let's not just slap a condition on them, right? Let's focus on what's working and what's right. Like, that's just absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for bringing that in. So how long is your course typically, and what kind of people come seeking your course? Do they have to have a background in medicine to begin with, or what's your demographic like?
Yeah, so it's 12 months and it's all online. And the beauty of becoming a health coach, which we badly need, is there's no barriers to entry. The requirement is you're a good listener, you want to serve people, and it is not required at all to have a healthcare background. Sometimes it gets in the way. We have medical doctors who train with us, and they struggle a lot, the coach approach, because they want to be that expert that's telling people what to do or doing the diagnosis. That's not what coaches do. They help people get from where they are to where they want to be by listening to them, by asking questions about what matters most. And then from there, they come up with a plan. And it is starting very, very tiny often, and setting goals, and then the coach helps people be held accountable. And so we've had some of our best coaches come from corporate, from other walks of life. Often the unifying factor is they had a condition themselves that, like you, that it was difficult to address. They weren't getting answers. They weren't getting better. They found functional, integrative root cause medicine, and they're now wanting to give back, and they're wanting to serve others, and finding that even the process of learning the coaching process and functional medicine and positive psychology, which is what the curriculum is, mind body medicine, it is healing for themselves. So they are transformed. And just the process of coaching transforms you. You're with someone and you see them have that aha moment where they're making that decision to commit to some change, perhaps in diet, for example, or how they're moving throughout the day. And it's very rewarding for the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the biggest part of the job that I love the most, seeing
Yeah.
those light bulbs go off.
Oh, isn't it amazing? Yeah.
Incredible. That and lab results day. I love lab results.
Oh, so you like to get into the, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's like Christmas,
Yeah.
to tell people, show them, hey, you're not crazy. Look at what we found. Awesome. So let's dive back into the resilience or the coping with chronic Lyme. So you got into some of those acronyms there and kind of how you work with folks. So how else are you looking at chronic Lyme, building resilience?
Yeah, so we're looking at a key feature that whether you're working with a coach or you're looking at how you can take simple steps on your own, you're not your disease. And a disease as all-consuming, debilitating, often painful, or all this uncertainty, it tends to surround you. It tends to become you. And you lose life. You lose, so for example, it's how can you live with Lyme and live well? And this applies to other chronic conditions as well. So, for example, many people retreat. And when I was working as a psychologist, I saw this time and time again, no matter what the condition was. And back then, we really didn't know much about Lyme. It wasn't what it is today. The other mold related was another one that we didn't really talk about, back then. But the idea is that when you are your disease, you preface everything. Will I be able to go? There might be an event that comes up, like you were invited to something, there's a fun party, or there's some outing, or there's something that you think twice because your disease is talking for you. Will I be okay? Will I have to leave early? Will I feel good when I'm there? And so you might find yourself retreating. And what happens then? Well, the more you are disengaged from the potential for happiness, and the more that can feed back into how you express your illness, because you may then experience pain at a deeper level. You may have more overlay of depression, sadness, and that's going to feed back and again impact, because that's inflammatory. And so maybe you make poorer food choices, for example. And so it's committing to the value. Barbara Fredrickson, a noted researcher in positive psychology, talks about prioritizing positivity. So we're going to take Lyme out of the picture. We're just going to see you, your essence. What do you love? And can you engage in that? Now, there's reality here. So, for example, there might be some things that you're just are not going to be fun or you're capable of doing, but you can imagine it even there. So there's been a lot of research in the power of imagery. If somebody, this was a study, people were hospitalized and they were told to imagine doing a physical activity that they loved, like skiing or swimming. And actually the body was responding in a positive way. Certain things were lighting up, and it was anti-inflammatory, and they were reporting less pain, and the muscles were actually changing as well. It sounds fantastic, too hard to believe, but it was a well-validated study, and there's been replications of things like that. The power of what you imagine. So you imagine yourself going, you imagine being so immersed. I would often have people imagine like what it's like. Let's say you're watching a movie and you're so engaged. And for that moment or that few hours, let's say, times you have no awareness of you. You are in that film. And as a result, you may have rated like your pain is 10 out of 10. You're always aware of it. But then they might say, no, well, yeah, I did forget. I wasn't aware that I was in pain during that time. Maybe it was a comedy and you were laughing. So what are the things that are guaranteed to result in good feelings? Like for me, it's dancing on any level, even though I'm not good at it. But I take a ballet class. And so it is where you are going to find joy. What does that look like for you? And how can you bring more that into your life? That's building resilience.
Absolutely. I just got done watching this documentary a couple weeks ago I think it's called Heal, but it had Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I never
Yes.
knew his story. And he was hit by a car going 55 miles an hour, told he was never going to walk again. And in 6 weeks, he sat there in his room for hours, visualizing his spine getting put back together, his spine getting put back together, getting put back together. And now he's walking. I mean, it's amazing what this can do when we get it going in the right direction. That's why I said that too many folks, especially with Lyme, they like to wear that diagnosis like a comfort blanket.
Yes.
And I have a really tough time working with folks like that, because I know that until we kind of get that shifted, they're just wasting their time and their money. You know, that's one of the questions now on my intake form is, do you believe you can get better?
Mhm. Oh, that's so important. I love that.
Yeah, right. Like just right off the bat, let's weed this out, because if you don't think you can get better, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your money. That's not what I'm in this for, you know? And so, and there's a funny little line sometimes too with toxic positivity, right? So people think that just because they're supposed to be thinking and visualizing, that they now somehow put their feelings on the back burner and they're not allowed to feel. And that's not what this is, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It is realistic feeling. It is imagining. Our imaginations are so powerful.
Mhm.
And it is also accepting what is. There's the theory, it comes from the Gestalt therapy, and it is when you accept what is, you change. So a big part of it is accepting what is. And for Lyme, it's accepting, yes, I have this condition, and it is not me. It
Right.
is not my life. And I have hope. That hope is one of the strongest character strengths. Hope that I'm getting better. I'm going to see that, imagine it, and I have gratitude for every tiny step along the way to feeling better, to healing, moment by moment awareness of what is good. So perhaps I may have, let's say, I'm just going to use this example. Let's say I have pain in my wrist right now. Well, if I put all my attention in my left wrist, then I'm going to start to feel something different. I'm going to think of all the parts of me that are not in pain. And I'm going to take that one area and I'm going to gate it off. And I'm going to say, you know, bye-bye, you'll be gone soon. I'm healing. And so it is not that toxic positivity where you are depending, and it is like this sense that you blame yourself if it doesn't happen,
Right.
but you are accepting what is, accepting this is, and then this is what I'm wanting the outcome will be.
Absolutely. It sounds a lot like I just got done reading a Deepak Chopra book, and he talks a lot about detachment. And so I think detachment and acceptance kind of go hand in hand when it comes to a lot of these things. Because I know that expectations and those attachments on things are kind of what bite me in the butt every single time. But if you can detach, if you can accept, right, what is, what a game changer.
It is very challenging because the natural tendency we all do this, is like, why me? And this really sucks and I can't stand this. And then this comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, where you start looking at your words and your language. I can't stand this. This is awful. This is horrible. I can't take it anymore. It's only getting worse. And then that is leading to depressed mood and directly influencing how you respond behaviorally.
Absolutely. 100%. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful stuff. So now about comes that time of shameless plug time. So what do you have coming up? Do you have any kind of workshops or specials or a book that you would like to plug? What you got going on?
So we have a book that it's a free ebook, fmcafreebook.com, and it is How to Become a Health Coach, the career that brings people joy. We have a new class that will be starting in March. We just closed enrollment for September. And the world needs health coaches. So if any of what you've heard has said, like, yeah, I want to, we need a lot of people helping this, whether it's working with people with Lyme and other chronic conditions, whether it is using this knowledge so that you will find your own healing journey. And so you can go to functionalmedicinecoaching.org and find out all about that. We have specialty courses. We have some things coming up in the fall as well, special events.
That's awesome. And while you're out there looking, go ahead and go to discoveringhealthfdn.com and check out my 6 tips for a better night's sleep free ebook. And both of those things will be in the show's links. So when this goes out, everybody can find it very easily. But how exciting, because yes, it's not been an easy road doing the coaching, but it has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done before in my life. And it actually helps keep me, it helps me to behave. It helps me because I don't want to be a hypocrite in any way, shape, or form. And so I actually stopped being a health coach for a couple of years because I fell off the wagon completely and went back to all my old lifestyle, and I got all my old illnesses back. And then I stepped into my health trajectory again. And that's when I decided to open business back up again, because I couldn't do it while I was still being, like I said, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. And so this helps keep me on that straight and narrow that I need to be on. So it's a beautiful thing. Not only do I get to help myself out and my family and my friends, but then anybody else who's wanting to walk the walk and talk the talk. And there's a better way to live.
Yes. Well, Heather, you are a beautiful inspiration.
Ah, thanks. Make me blush. On that note, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a delight getting to know you. And are you going to be at Mindshare in October?
I am. Yes.
Yay, so I'll get to hug you in person.
Yeah.
Oh,
That'll be
exciting.
a wonderful event to connect.
Yes, absolutely. And to everybody else, have a healthy day.